Okay, so in this tutorial, we'll be covering the basics of recording audio. So we'll be looking at creating audio tracks, selecting your device for recording, monitoring an input signal, both prior to and during recording, and so forth and so on. We'll also briefly have a look at possible latency issues that you might encounter, especially if you're working on Windows and you lack, let's say, the appropriate hardware for professional recording. For this tutorial, we'll be assuming that you already have an audio interface up and running and it's set up for use in NTRK. In case you don't or you're unsure of how to do this, you can refer to the tutorial on external interfaces. So let's begin. To create a blank audio track, all you need to do is click on this button right here. As you can see, thanks to this little drop-down, we can choose to create other types of tracks. But in this case, all we had to do is click to create a new audio track. So we can see that NTRK created a new lane in our arrangement window for the track we just created. This is where our recorded audio will be placed. NTRK also created a mixer channel for our audio track. As you can see by opening up the mixer window, this is where we can control the track's level and its relation to others in the overall mix. And this is where we can route the signal coming from track 1 to other components, such as a group channel, an aux channel, and so on. Now that we created an audio track, let's enable it for recording. First thing we'll need to do is select an audio input for the track. This can be done quickly by clicking on the ARM button on the track's colored bar right here. As you can see, clicking ARM opens a menu which lets us select the input source for recording. Available selections will depend on your audio hardware and the amount of inputs that your interface has. Okay, so now that we created an audio track and assigned it to an input source for recording, let's suppose that we want to monitor the input signal to make sure we hear well what's going on before we actually capture the audio. To do this, the first thing you have to make sure is that your output volume is relatively low to avoid the output signal being captured in turn by the microphone, since this could create a potentially dangerous feedback loop and harm your ears. So what's recommended is to keep the volume really low, or even better, to use a headset or some headphones, in which case you can keep the monitoring level relatively high and still avoid feedback. Once you have your headphones connected, you can switch on input monitoring by clicking the speaker icon right here. Now that input monitoring is on, you can hear the input signal coming through the headphones and preview your sound before you actually capture the audio. If you're a Windows user and you're not using a low latency external audio interface, you may be experiencing latency during your input monitoring, especially if you're using your system's built-in input. To fix this, you could consider downloading the ASIO for All drivers at the link showed here. These are low latency audio drivers for Windows, which you can actually install for free. Once you install them, you can then select them via the audio devices settings, accessible via the settings menu over here. Now that we created an audio track, selected an input signal, and learned how to monitor the incoming audio before recording it, we can start capturing our performance by clicking the record button on the main transport bar and playing something into our microphone.